Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever felt like everything was going right with a woman? The conversations were flowing, the energy felt mutual, maybe even intense, and then suddenly she pulled back. Not completely gone, not rejecting you, just different. Slower replies, less emotional openness, a subtle distance you can feel but can't explain. And that's when your mind starts racing, right? Did I say something wrong? Is she losing interest? Is there another guy? Should I try harder or pull away too? You start overthinking every message, every interaction, every silence, and without realizing it, you shift from being confident to being reactive. But what if I told you something most men never hear? What if she's not pulling away because she doesn't feel anything, but because she feels too much? I know that sounds confusing, maybe even a little frustrating. Because from your perspective, if you like someone, you move closer, you show more interest, you lean in. But emotional attraction, especially for women, doesn't always work that way. Sometimes, when feelings start getting real, when they move from light and fun into something deeper, more vulnerable, it can trigger fear instead of comfort. Fear of losing control, fear of being hurt, fear of choosing wrong. So instead of moving closer, she pauses. She creates space, not because she wants to lose you, but because she's trying to understand what she's feeling. And here's where most men get it wrong. You interpret her pause as rejection, so you try to fix it. You text more, you chase harder, you try to prove your value. But in doing that, you unknowingly remove the very thing that made her feel something in the first place, your emotional stability. Because attraction doesn't grow in pressure, it grows in space, safety, and emotional clarity. This video is going to shift how you see those moments. Because if you can understand the difference between disinterest and emotional overwhelm, you stop reacting out of fear and start responding with awareness. And that's where your power is. Let me ask you something again. When a woman suddenly becomes distant, what's the first thing you assume? That she's losing interest, right? You don't think she's overwhelmed. You think, I'm about to lose her. And that belief changes everything. I've seen this happen so many times. A guy meets a woman, things are easy, natural. She's laughing, opening up, showing genuine interest. He feels it. She feels it. But then something shifts. She slows down. And instead of staying grounded, he reacts. He double texts. He tries to bring back the energy. He becomes more available, more eager, more anxious. And what he doesn't realize is he's responding to the wrong problem. Because what if her distance isn't about losing interest, but about processing intensity? You see, when emotions stay light, it's easy. There's no risk. But when feelings start getting deeper, that's when questions show up in her mind. Is this real? Can I trust this? Am I ready for this? That emotional shift can feel uncomfortable, even if she likes you. So she creates space, not to leave, but to think. And here's the psychological truth most men miss. Attraction doesn't disappear in silence, but it can disappear under pressure. When you rush in to fix her distance, you're not giving her time to understand her feelings. You're overwhelming them. Let me ask you something again. When a woman suddenly becomes distant, what's the first thing you assume? That she's losing interest, right? You don't think she's overwhelmed. You think, I'm about to lose her. And that belief changes everything. I've seen this happen so many times. A guy meets a woman, things are easy, natural, she's laughing, opening up, showing genuine interest. He feels it. She feels it. But then something shifts. She slows down. And instead of staying grounded, he reacts. He double texts. He tries to bring back the energy. He becomes more available, more eager, more anxious. And what he doesn't realize is he's responding to the wrong problem. Because what if her distance isn't about losing interest, but about processing intensity? You see, when emotions stay light, it's easy, there's no risk. But when feelings start getting deeper, that's when questions show up in her mind. Is this real? Can I trust this? Am I ready for this? That emotional shift can feel uncomfortable, even if she likes you. So she creates space, not to leave, but to think. And here's the psychological truth most men miss. Attraction doesn't disappear in silence, but it can disappear under pressure. When you rush in to fix her distance, you're not giving her time to understand her feelings. You're overwhelming them. Why strong feelings can trigger fear instead of closeness. Let me take you a little deeper. Why is it that the moment things start to feel real, she begins to pull back? Isn't that the opposite of what should happen? You're thinking, if she likes me, shouldn't she move closer? But attraction isn't just about liking someone. It's about what those feelings activate inside a person. Imagine this. She's been hurt before. Or maybe she's made emotional choices she later regretted. Now she meets you, and this time it feels different, stronger, more meaningful. At first, it's exciting, but then it becomes serious. And with seriousness comes risk. What if I get attached and it doesn't work? What if I lose myself? What if this changes everything? So instead of leaning in, she slows down. Not because she doesn't feel anything, but because she feels something she can't control yet. That loss of emotional control can be uncomfortable, and when people feel overwhelmed, their natural instinct isn't always connection, it's protection. So she creates space. Now here's where your awareness matters. If you interpret her fear as rejection, you'll respond emotionally. You'll try to pull her back in. But if you understand that her distance is her way of regulating her emotions, you respond differently. You stay calm. You don't chase the moment, you allow it to unfold. Because real attraction doesn't need to be forced, it needs to be understood. And when she realizes that she can feel deeply, without being rushed, pressured, or overwhelmed, that's when she starts to trust not just you, but her own emotions around you. So now the question becomes, if her fear is a reaction to something real, what happens when your response makes that fear worse instead of better? The mistake men make that pushes her further away. Let's be honest here. This is where most men lose it. And I say this with respect, not to criticize you, but to wake you up. When her energy changes, you panic. Maybe not outwardly. Maybe you still try to act cool, but internally, you're already reacting, and that reaction shows up in subtle ways. You text more than usual. You start checking your phone constantly. You overthink your words. You try to maintain control of something that was never meant to be controlled. And here's the truth. The moment you start chasing clarity from someone who is still figuring out their emotions, you create pressure. And pressure kills attraction faster than rejection ever could. I've seen men who were confident, grounded, naturally attractive, lose all of that the moment uncertainty enters the picture. Not because they're not good enough, but because they don't know how to handle emotional tension. They try to fix it immediately. But not everything is meant to be fixed quickly. Some things need space to develop. And here's the hard truth you need to hear. If a small shift in her energy makes you lose your emotional stability, then you're not leading the connection, you're reacting to it. And women feel that, not through your words, but through your energy. So what's the shift? You stop trying to control how she feels. You stop trying to rush clarity. And you start focusing on something most men ignore, your own emotional discipline. Because the man who can stay calm in uncertainty is the man who becomes safe to open up to. But the man who becomes reactive becomes someone she has to manage emotionally, and that's exhausting. So ask yourself honestly, are you responding with stability, or are you reacting out of fear of losing her? Because that answer changes everything. How to respond without losing yourself or her. So now you understand what's happening. But what do you actually do when she pulls back? Let's bring this into real life. You send a message, she replies, but it's shorter than usual. Before, she would ask questions, keep the conversation going. Now, it feels flat. Your instinct? Let me revive the conversation. So you send another message, maybe a joke, maybe a question, maybe something to spark her interest again. But here's the problem. You're trying to force energy instead of reading it. A better response? Match the moment. Don't fight it. If her energy slows down, you slow down too. Not as a game, but as emotional awareness. You give the interaction room to breathe. Another example. You notice she's not as available as before. Instead of asking, "Are you okay?" or "Did I do something?" which subtly puts pressure on her, you stay grounded. You continue your life, your routine, your focus. You don't withdraw in a cold way, but you also don't overextend yourself to fix something that isn't broken. Because here's the truth. When you remain steady, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. I'm not here to chase you. I'm here to connect with you. And that energy creates space for her to come back naturally. Because now she doesn't feel watched, rushed, or emotionally responsible for your reactions. She feels free. And people move toward what feels free. So instead of asking, "How do I keep her interested?" ask a better question. How do I stay centered regardless of what she's feeling? Because when you master that, you stop losing yourself in the process of trying to keep someone else. And that's where real attraction begins to stabilize. But there's one final shift that changes everything completely. Why letting her come to you changes everything. This might be the hardest part for you to accept, because it goes against everything you've been taught. You've been told that if you want something, you go after it. You make it happen. You don't sit back. And in many areas of life, that works. But in emotional connection, it can backfire. Letting her come to you doesn't mean doing nothing. It means creating the kind of space where she wants to move toward you. Let's make this real. Think about the moments when she was most engaged with you. Was it when you were trying hard to impress her? Or when you were relaxed, present, and just being yourself? Exactly. Attraction grows in authenticity, not effort. So when you stop chasing her reactions and start focusing on your presence, your life, your direction, something shifts. She starts to feel the absence of pressure. She starts to process her emotions without interference. And most importantly, she starts to choose to come back. Not because you forced it, but because it feels right to her. And that's the difference between temporary attention and genuine connection. Because anything you have to chase constantly will eventually exhaust you. But something that chooses you back? That's sustainable. So instead of asking, "How do I keep her?" ask yourself, "Am I creating a space where she wants to stay?" Because when you understand that, you stop chasing people and you start attracting clarity. Here's a truth that might challenge you. Sometimes the moment you feel like you're losing her is actually the moment she's deciding how deeply she's willing to feel you. But most men never see that moment clearly because they react too quickly. They try to fix, chase, control, and in doing so, they interrupt something that could have grown naturally. So let me say this to you directly. You don't lose women because they feel too much. You lose them when you don't know how to handle what they feel. And that's not an attack. That's awareness. Because once you understand this, everything changes. You stop overthinking every silence. You stop chasing every shift. You start becoming a man who is emotionally steady, grounded, and rare. And from a woman's perspective, that kind of man stands out more than you realize. So I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this? A moment where she pulled back and you didn't understand why? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. Because the more you understand these patterns, the less confused you become. And I'll leave you with this. Attraction doesn't grow when you chase it. It grows when you create space for it to return.